November 121 Mike, your turn. Taxi to runway 19.
Hi, I'm Mike Thompson, and welcome to 121 Point Mike Ground School. This video is going to cover startup and taxi. Well, there's actually not much to cover in startup. Just use the checklist for your aircraft to be sure you've got a permutation. A what now? Oh, right, that's a math term for having all the correct numbers and in the correct order. They really should be called permutation locks, I suppose. So in math, you want to make sure that all the things are done and in the correct order. PEMDAS. Once you got your plane started and your avionics on, avionics is a portmanteau of aviation and electronics, avionics. Prior to taxi, you're going to need to pick up the ATIS. I mentioned this in my ground radio video, but I'll hit it again. You'll switch your comm radio over to the ATIS frequency so that you can get the current weather. It'll sound something like this.
Number open information, Oscar 1447 Zulu, wind 0403, visibility 10, scattered 2,400, ceiling broken 5,000, temperature 29er, 2.22, altimeter 3002. Expect a visual approach, runway 12 in use. RFR clearance, contact ground on 121.7. Advise on contact of information, Oscar.
It's not always a robot voice, but then you'll set your altimeter to the current setting, and you'll either tune your ground control or to CTAF. CTAF is the Common Traffic Advisory Frequency, remember? So if there's no tower, you'll use the CTAF to announce your position and intentions. If there is a tower and it's open, you'll tune your comm radio to ground control. It probably has a 121 to the left of the decimal point. You'll call them up like this. Stewart ground, Aero 121 Mike at parking ready to taxi with Oscar. That little Oscar at the end tells them that you're up to date on the current weather. They'll give you a taxi clearance, and you'll repeat it. Then you'll do all those things that they told you to do, and in the correct order. What's that called again? Oh, permutation. If you're at a non-towered airport, you're simply going to announce your intentions over the CTAF, like this. Garnet traffic, Aero 121 Mike at the ramp, taxiing to runway 19, Garnet. Now, if what I said just doesn't make any sense to you, go back and watch the ground radio video after this one. Now, when you taxi, you're going to follow the solid yellow line. That's the taxiway center line. Large airports also have green lights along the center line that come on at night. Keep your plane centered on the taxiway so your wings don't clip things that are beyond. Taxiway edges are not always marked, so stay in the middle. Taxiway edges are marked with blue lights at night, but the lights are, of course, not right on the edge, so stay centered. I've said that a few times now. It's still true. Remember when you listened to the ATIS and got the wind? Your test will want you to know how to position the controls during taxi. The thing to know is that the most dangerous situation is to taxi with a quartering tailwind. Quartering tailwinds are bad. Now, why is that? You don't want our airplane to leave the ground until we're ready, and we certainly don't want that to happen during taxi, so we must keep the plane from flipping over and firmly planted on the ground. We can position the control surfaces to accomplish this, but you have to know where the wind is. We need to keep the weight on the wheels so that we can steer and brake. With the wind coming from behind, it's going to want to get under the upwind wing and lift it, and it's going to want to lift the tail. The tail provides a nice lever with which to lift the wheels off the ground when we're ready. If you keep the elevator up and your upwind aileron up, it provides a really nice surface for the wind to lift against. So, we position our control surfaces to force the plane onto the ground. With that dangerous quartering tailwind, we push forward on the controls to lower the elevator. This places the elevator down, so wind coming from the tail will tend to just kind of push the tail down. By lowering the upwind aileron, we can force that wing down as the wind comes up over the top. Now as you turn, you'll adjust the controls to ensure that your plane will stay planted on the ground. Tailwinds require elevator down. Tailwinds down. Tail down. Headwinds can typically use neutral elevator, but we still position the ailerons so the wind can't flip the plane. With a quartering headwind, you'll roll into the wind as well, but you'll use neutral elevator, unless your flight manual says to position the elevator some other way. We always want to keep the upwind surfaces from lifting and flipping us over, or reducing the forces on our wheels. You are guaranteed to see this wind taxiing thing on your test. So let's do a practice problem to make sure that you've got it. We're taxiing on Tuesday at 7:30 in our black and yellow plane to runway 34. We're currently taxiing to the end of the runway on the parallel taxiway, which means we're heading 160. The wind is coming from 010 at 8 knots. So how should we position our controls? Long pause. Once you've eliminated the extraneous information, you can see that the wind is coming from 30 degrees left of our tail, which is a left quartering tailwind. So we push forward on the yoke and then roll away from the wind to get that upwind aileron down. This control position will keep our tail on the ground and keep us on all three wheels. Alrighty, see, it's not that hard, but you're going to see it on your test, and your examiner will be watching how you position the controls during taxi, so make sure that you know how to keep your wheels planted. Now that you know how to position the controls, what about controlling your speed? Well, your primary speed control will be with the throttle, and you shouldn't taxi faster than a brisk walk. Your airspeed indicator really shouldn't show anything during taxi. You'll reduce speed first with the throttle, then with the brakes. We want our brakes to last, so don't ride them, and adjust your speed with the throttle first. Don't ride the brakes. You'll pass various signs and markings on your taxi, and you better know what they mean. So if you don't already know, go watch my video on signs and markings. You're certainly going to see those on a test. Know where the wind is, always, and know where your plane is positioned with respect to the wind, always. Knowing those two things will help you taxi safely and fly the maneuvers in the air. And we'll go through those in a couple more videos. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. It's free and you'll be notified when the next video is out. You can also, of course, help me out by leaving comments in addition to subscribing. And stay with me on 121 Point Mike.